Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Convenience Talks. My name is Katy Moses and I'm founder and MD of KAM Media, and I'm joined today by Matt Moden, who is co-founder and MD, same title, of Liberty Flights, and also founding member of the IBVTA, which I will allow him to tell you about. Matt, would you like to let anyone out there know exactly who you, Liberty Flights and the IBVTA are?
Hi, Katy. Thanks for having me. Yeah, with pleasure. It's a bit of an acronym, that one, but we'll come on to that in a moment. So, as you rightly point out, I am the co-founder of Liberty Flights. We are a UK-based manufacturer of e-liquids and supplier and distributor of vaping products, largely to the convenience retail sector, as things have more latterly gone over recent years. We were fortunate enough to be right at the beginning of the birth of the industry for the vape sector in the UK. Which I think is often the pariah, and perhaps wrongly so. You know, we're a very respectable industry, and we've got some very respectable businesses within the UK. I think it's fair to say that the UK is often regarded by many of our European and global peers as people to look to in terms of integration, legislation, regulation, and the way that we've integrated vaping into society and indeed into the commercial world. I think what's important for me to state before we do go on, in case there's any confusion out there, is that we shouldn't be the pariah, which is an obvious thing for me to say. I think we provide a viable exit route for people from tobacco combustion and conventional tobacco smoking. And I think now, latterly, we understand more about the product. Scientifically, we understand what it does to the body. And we get backed by certain big public health bodies within the UK and globally with regards to what the opportunity is in terms of it being a public health prize, if I may put it like that. The IBVTA that you referenced is the Independent British Vape Trade Association. So we do have a couple of trade associations, and I'm the founder member of that. And we go a long way to engaging with government, with policy stakeholders and the managers of law in order to give them a fuller understanding of what vaping is and what it can mean to society.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And I mean, I'm reasonably well versed in the category myself, because actually it's exactly how I managed to give up smoking 6 years ago. So I can definitely say that worked for me personally. So, but tell me a little bit about, we've all been chasing our tail so much this year for various different reasons. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm not fully up to date with what's going on in the category at the moment. So tell me about the vape category and trade in 2020 and what COVID has meant for it, of course, as well.
Sure. So as we find ourselves in the last month of the year of 2020 and what a year it's been, I think there's not much I can say that hasn't been said before without being unduly hyperbolic about unprecedented and really quite torturous for many people's, literally, metaphorically, mentally, all the impact that it's had on people we're also closely aware of. I think if we talk specifically about our sector, it's been a particularly troublesome year for us. It started, as you may recall, and some viewers may recall, from some bad news stories that came out from America at the tail end of last year and the beginning of this year, where explicitly people were having very serious lung-related disease from what we now know was from inhaling THC products that were not regulated in America, that were being formulated with the wrong products and effectively were emitting something called vitamin E acetate, which is very bad for the body. And unfortunately, that led to some tragedies where people did lose their lives. Now, where this story is bad from a UK vape perspective is that it's a completely different product, completely different ingredients. But unfortunately, the whole industry was tarred with the same brush, and we saw the headlines as we do across some of our mainstream media and tabloids along the lines of vaping kills, vaping's worse for your health than smoking. So that was a particularly bad start to the year that I think, on average, probably impacted many businesses circa 20+% in terms of downturn in revenue. So it was a massive impact for us. And then, of course, we found ourselves, like everybody does, staring down, an unprecedented once-in-a-generation pandemic, which we're all fully aware of. So the immediate reaction to the pandemic was very stark for us. As with everybody, we had to do some very quick firefighting within the business. We produce, we manufacture, we've got clean rooms and a full automated bottling plant. And we had to split shifts. We're finding demand for the product. So we split shift in order to create social distancing. We took the opportunity to see what we had to do very quickly and how, because it became apparent that much like what we've seen in wider convenience retail did become very, very important in terms of servicing communities, and vape was very much a big part of that. The independent vape stores, unfortunately, were not classed as essential stores, so they were closed alongside many other retail outlets. So even more emphasis was put on convenience retail, which was brought to the fore. And I think upon reflection, and I hope it's not too soon or remiss of me to start thinking about reflecting upon what's happened, but it was a time where we were able to take stock of what we did, how we did it, and in fairness to our staff, just how good they were at their jobs and how adept they were at being able to be agile, show agility and get on with the job at hand. So we were stung by it as well. We had to close some of we own stores ourselves, and we had to close some of those stores. They wouldn't get past the first version of lockdown, unfortunately. It's interesting when we think about the vape industry. You can split it into three sections essentially. You've got the online, and then you've got the independent vape stores, and you've got the now convenience retail. And the industry is roughly worth around about £1 billion UK at the moment, in Britain. So it's a good industry. It's a big industry. From my perspective, 11th year of trading, we've gone from clicks to bricks, and then almost back to clicks and different bricks in terms of where it's migrated to. So it's brought to the fore lots of things for us to consider and adapt to. But I think we've done okay.
And when you're talking about, if we can just focus on the bricks side of things, so now you mentioned just now that obviously independent vape stores were not seen as essential, so they weren't allowed to open during the various lockdowns. Do you think that will have a fundamental effect on the long-term sites situation, or do you think that, in my experience, I've been into quite a lot of vape shops, I've done a lot of work with vape companies, quite often they're on the high street, they're quite often very small rather than bigger. And so, how are those sites going to exist going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a worrying time for those people. I think we can all jokingly make reference to the fact that we walk down any high street in the UK and we see, a vape shop, and it's reminiscent of maybe where mobile phones were 20, 30 years ago in terms of, this uprising of entrepreneurs who found something. We're a very disruptive sector. We came out of, I often liken us to Napster back in the day. We almost revolutionized people's approach, certainly to nicotine and certainly the way it was manufactured, bought and sold. And there is pressure. I think that there's a lot of pressure. There are a lot of people vying for that same space, vying for those same customers. They do a wonderful job in terms of not only supplying product, but giving advice and helping people through that journey, as you've alluded to yourself, with regard to what the right thing to do is, how one can give up, get out of tobacco and into another form of nicotine, or indeed non-nicotine. We can't deny that there's going to be some real hardship out there. There already are. We have a field team out on the road, and in between the two lockdowns, some of the stories that were coming back weren't great with regards to people with a finite amount of money that would, they were either going to stick or twist basically, and either buy more stock and see if they could make a run of it. And some people have shown great ingenuity. They've serviced their local communities as they would have done. They've done deliveries, click and collect, things like that, so get through. But yeah, I think the impact is there to be seen. I think, interestingly, our top performing store, we opened the first day after the first lockdown, and sales revenue on a like-for-like on that precise day from pre-COVID were pretty much there, 90-95% of what we would have anticipated taking. And then they dropped to around 60 or so. And then obviously we've faced a second lockdown. And as I said, there's great demand for the product. And what this has done, there's the obvious remigration, if that's the correct phrase, back to online buying for our type of product, but critically within convenience retail as well, where, you know, there's definitely been more attention and more demand within those channels for people who are getting not only their everyday but also their vapes from these outlets as well.
And taking into consideration the situation that we all find ourselves in, and of course, the bricks to clicks to bricks. I can't remember where we started and finished. You know, what can, you know, can we finish up on what can retailers do to maximize the opportunity? Because for convenience, you know, category specific help, insight, recommendations is so important, and this is still a new category really in the big scheme of things. So what could any retailer that's watching this do to maximize the opportunity in vape?
I think it's a really valid question, and I think certainly we started our journey in the convenience retail world about 5 or 6 years ago now, and we almost foresaw that ultimately this is where the product will end up. And I think often convenience retailers as a category or as a sector, they criticize themselves for dropping the ball with, you know, with vape as a product, and it's often overlooked. I think a couple of points. With the greatest respect, it really wasn't a ball to be dropped. It was an industry that was disruptive, that had to evolve organically in the way it did. When we talk about, you know, being born online, lots of forum, lots of interaction, really driven by its customers. You know, we were pushed as a business to innovate by what our customers were directly telling us that they wanted. So it was this really exciting, frothy kind of busy period in the earlier years. And then what convenience retailers can do now, I think, is principally not be afraid of the category. Class it as something that is core. It's a core line. You know, I think everybody acknowledges that now. And critically as well, I think there are a couple of things that people should consider where when tobacco went dark, for example, there was an instant gravitation towards the gantries. But when we think about, despite what every vape company will tell you, they're the number one in the country, there is no real recognized brands per se within the vape category. When we think about the cigarette brands that we can each identify just from the packs, you know, and really generations can still do that. There's not that same use of language in terms of visually for vape products. So I think it's important to not overstretch in terms of what a retailer may get. Don't indulge in excesses of hardware and rebuildable coils. Stick to mainstream everyday vape, good sellers, pick good suppliers, pick a good product. We have a very good pod system at the moment that's fantastic because it requires very little engagement in terms of knowledge from the retailer or indeed the customer. You literally just plug it in and go. It's the first time we've sold a pod system because we believe in the tech now, whereas we didn't in the early years. We were always more of a tank and a liquid based business, which we still supply. But choosing the right products, don't overrange, don't double up, and get it right. And class it as one would a different category, an alcohol or a wine, beer, wine, spirits. And then you know, there's real opportunity, I think, for people to maximize what vape could give to them. Make sure the customer can see it.
Yes, absolutely. Matt Moden, thank you so much. It was really good to hear your thoughts on both the industry, the category, and how retailers can capitalize on it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you on a bike very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie.